gentlemen, it is a fantastic week for Packers fans. We did get a win against the Rams. That was huge. It was a gritty one. Once again, Johnny Samp, Carter Decker here for the Beer, Meat, and Cheese podcast. We're always having fun. We're always having a good time on this show, and we keep things light and breezy. But we got everything you need before the tailgate, and it'll be all right here in this good long episode. But once again, Carter played football for St. Norbert College. He was a wide receiver over there, number 83, big man, getting the cookies off the top shelf in the end zone. That's what I expect his role to be. I never actually got to see him play, but he is a good friend of mine. And we got a lot of Packers talk, NFC North talk, a lot more NFL sort of stuff. And we've got a full show for you. That is indeed true. But let's get it started here. Packers getting the dub, 24-19 over the Rams, Carter. And it was a gritty one. I'm not going to say it was real pretty. It was not real pretty, but they did get the win. And it was absolutely a grudge match. It kind of came down to like using different plays, different schemes. We saw players with different looks and that sort of thing. It was actually kind of a fun game to watch because you got your heart racing a little bit. What were your first thoughts on the Packers win over the Rams this past weekend?
And it was, like you said, it was a grudge match. It came down to that last drive by the Rams, and thankfully our safety Evan Williams stood up and really made a huge play on their tight end. But like you said, it was just fun. It was fun to watch. It was quite a heart tremor. It gave us a lot of jumps. You know what? They came through. Like you said, they dispersed the ball quite a bit, especially to the tight end. I mean, Rev came out there and just annihilated the defense of the Rams. So it was a lot of fun to see. There's a lot to get through, so I'm ready to get this ball rolling.
All right, yeah, we certainly have enough content for you today, and hopefully you do give us a listen. We are also on Spotify as well, so you can watch us there in case you are driving in the car, that sort of thing. But if you want to sit down and watch the YouTube broadcast, that's always great for us. We do appreciate everyone tuning in and doing that sort of thing. But let's talk a little bit about, first we'll talk about the Packers. You know, they showed life, but they only had 10 points in that first half. And it was really kind of a slow get-go of things. And as a player, I guess, from a player's perspective, what do you think LaFleur was saying in the locker room at halftime to get them going? Because we were trailing by 4 in really kind of an inopportune game, which when I thought we were going to win a lot more handedly, but we definitely did not. So what is that conversation? Because I know there's a lot of memes out there that he's slapping players in the face and, getting them going. But what's that conversation like when you are down at half, but you're expected to be that better team coming into the contest?
It really is an intense conversation. Now, do I think the Packers thought they were going to come in and win this handily? I don't think so. I think they really go on. I think LaFleur goes into every game really, respecting the other team. Now, did I think we were supposed to win handily? 100%.
Yeah.
But I think that locker room talk was more along the lines of like, hey, guys, we're here. We've made a lot of mistakes, and we're giving up a lot of easy stuff, plenty of drops in the first and the second half. But just seemed like he probably went in there and told them the truth, said, hey, we're in this game. We can beat this team. We can be the better team. And I think it's really up to the players to just kind of go out there and on Jordan Love's shoulders almost to just go out there and execute because they got the game plan. They knew what they were doing. Once they started getting their pieces involved, it started looking a lot more clean, a lot more crisp. Again, still mistakes in the second half. However, I think our first half to second half comparison, I think the second half looked phenomenal. Seems like the Packers just keep following that trend, but I think LaFleur went in there and just was honest with them, didn't beat on him too hard. I think he just kind of told them the truth and said, can do this. If you guys want to flop on your face, then you do. But we have the opportunity. We coach you guys correctly. We know what we're doing. Let's go get it and execute. And I think they did that perfectly. They went out in the second half. They played a lot more crisp, like I said, and still drops we got to clean up. And I hate to say it, but my boy Wicks, love him to death because I think he's going to be a great receiver for us. He's got to clean that up. Got to keep those hands sharp. There's a few big plays down the stretch where had he not done that, we probably would have been in a better spot. But I think they came out of that halftime locker room knowing what needed to be done, calm, cool as a cucumber, and they just went out there and executed.
Yeah, without a doubt, I totally agree on that Wicks statement. I think he can be a big player, and he's definitely got that potential. Those drops are killer, though. I mean, you got to get those catches. All the other receivers are doing it. I mean, you saw even a little from Bo Melton getting some nice catches in that contest. But let's take a look at the stats here. It looks like Love was 15 for 26, 224 yards, 2 TDs, 1 interception. Stafford, on the other hand, 29 for 45, 260 yards, 1 TD, 1 interception. But the Love game, and as we could call it, Love game, Lady Gaga, and, and something like that. But Love's game, there was a couple question marks I had in that contest, especially because it seemed like he just kind of threw it up. And he gave us the Brett Favre look. He did have that really bad turnover just outside the end zone. He was kind of scrambling over to his right, and then the pressure caught up to him a little bit quicker, and he threw it away, which got picked, or tried to throw it away, which got picked because he's being tackled at the same time. But it was, and I definitely support, obviously Jordan Love, everything he's doing. But I thought of it, took a little time to think about what it really was that I was seeing, because he did have that big pass to Reed that was really exciting at the beginning of the second half and kind of got things going. But what I see from Love, and now you can agree, disagree, go in between, whatever you'd like. I think he's a little bit of Rodgers and a little bit of Favre. So he has that Rodgers mentality where he's going to not try to turn the ball over and he's going to try to take care of it. But he also has that Favre mentality where he's kind of like, oh, I just got to chuck it here. And then we saw that with Reed, and it was triple coverage with the man undercutting. He undercut Reed, and if he was overcut, he came over the top. It was going to be a pick probably too. But it's really interesting to watch him because I think he's kind of the perfect fit for the Packers right now, especially the team. We just came off, with Rodgers, who was very calculated in everything he did, but he also frustrated fans by doing that because he would take third downs and he wouldn't throw the ball because he didn't want to turn it over. And people are like, well, take a chance, see if the receiver can get a catch. But on the other side, before when we had Favre, it was the other thing where, oh, he'd just chuck it up in the air, and then all of a sudden you'd see somebody in another jersey come down with it, and then you're like, oh, well, that sucks. But I think Love is that perfect fit. What do you think of Love's kind of game and how he's kind of playing right now?
I think he's playing well. Now, coming off that injury, you're always going to have those, games where you're not going to play, to perfection like we saw the last week. However, I think he's starting to come back. He's looking really good. He looked good the second half of this game against the Rams. Now, I'm not going to say he didn't look good in the first half because there was a lot of mistakes on the other side where we were dropping the balls, we just weren't executing, and that's kind of out of his hands. However, you're right, that pass to Reed, and I think I just saw him in an interview where he was like, "Oh yeah, great pass. I'm glad he came down with it, but I'd never do that again." And I completely agree. I think he took his shot there. Really lucky. I watched the film back and I watched from a different perspective. You're right. That corner leaked out. If that corner would have played like he should have and just ran straight up the field, I think he would have picked it. However, Jordan put that so far on the left side of the field, where even the corner was like, he's not going to throw it behind me. He's going to put it out in front where his receiver can get it. And I think it just was a combination of luck and, of course, Reed went out there and just put his hands up and said, "I'm coming down with this ball," which I think has been his best factor so far. He just has that mentality that he just wants it. He just wants to go get it. He doesn't want to, see his quarterback fail. He wants that ball. I think Jordan has got a lot of key players around him to support his habits of like trying to push that ball downfield where he
For
does
sure.
take those calculated risks. However, he's got to clean it up, and he knows it. He knows he can't make that throw. I'm pretty sure as soon as he let it go, he was probably like, "Ah, no, that's a bad idea." But again, we got lucky, and sometimes it's better to be lucky than to be good. So see what happens from here. But I think he's got a lot of potential, and he's still got a lot of room to grow. He's got an arm, man. He's got that talent to just get it downfield. We just got to start locking in on some of those deep passes, and just start, making him more consistent.
And the one thing I am going to say about Love with his passing, you talked about him having an arm, and he certainly does. I'm not going to question that. But the one thing that drives me nuts, and I don't know if it drives you nuts, it's those, 15, 20-yard passes. He's throwing it off the back foot. And it's kind of, more of a lob than a strike. I would love to see Love. I would love to see Love, excuse me, taking a step forward and really kind of driving that ball forward, because that gives me a little more security that it's not going to get picked. When you see those floaters going in for 15, 20 yards, that sort of thing, I understand it if the guy's on the move, but if he's standing still, he's going to either take a lick or it's going to get picked. And I really don't like
Right.
that. So I'd like to see him do some more of that, but I was really happy with what he did in that contest. I know there's a lot of people, you get the Twitter world throughout the game, and then you watch that a little bit, which can just totally throw off what you're thinking. And they were, hating on Love, and I'm like, really, guys, we're going to hate on a guy who's just coming off an injury and everything else, and he's still making plays. I mean, that's at the end of the day, that's what you have to do. I don't care how it happens, just make plays and get them done. And I think he did a really nice job in that contest, even with the turnover.
think the only time that it scares me when he jumps off his back foot or when he's sitting back there and just kind of lobs it up is those first series, those like first second series. When I see him do that, I do get very worried because he's not. I mean, just from a player's perspective, it takes a little bit to just get into the swing of things in a game. First series, there's a lot of nerves, especially when you're in a big stadium, and I mean Lambeau's, awesome. So, or excuse me, out in SoFi is awesome. So you got to take your time. There's a lot of nerves, and then of course you're just trying to put your play together. You just want to go out there and do what you can do. So you kind of overthink things. So I don't mind seeing that down the stretch when he's making those big plays like he did do a Bow and when he kind of threw it off the back foot to Wicks towards the end, which unfortunately he dropped, but it was a perfect pass right over the tips of the fingers of the defender, hit him in both of his hands. Now he did get hit a little bit on his left hand, which okay, good defense, but still think Wicks should have came down with it. Doesn't scare me when he's in the heat of things and he's going and it's towards the end of the game. Now, like I agree, first two series when he's just like, I'm gonna just get it up there and hopefully he comes down with it. It's very sketchy, but I'd like to see him step into some throws and I think that'll come along with his recovery from that injury.
Yeah, I certainly hope it does. With those, not stepping in necessarily, kind of leaning off that back foot, it always does drive me nuts. I saw it last year, and I know it was kind of a Rodgers thing. He probably learned. Rodgers is a big back foot thrower. But let's take a look at Stafford's stats here. He was 29 for 45, 260 yards, 1 TD, 1 interception as well. But I guess more of the impact in that contest was from their running game. Our run defense struggled, and Josh Jacobs had 19 carries, 73 yards, 1 touchdown, and Kyren Williams, he had 22 carries, 102 yards, and 1 touchdown. But I think those 102 yards were a lot more effective than what they probably present on the stat sheet, because throughout the game, it was driving me absolutely crazy how our run defense was not able to get anything stopped, and you kept seeing him get those tough first downs, even on like third and longs and that sort of thing. But what do you think about the running game in that contest? I know we talked a little bit about the passing game. Now let's switch it over to the running game on both sides. What was your thoughts on like the Packers and the Rams running contest here?
I'll start with the Rams. I mean, they were just like you said, just running through us like a hot knife through butter. I mean, they put up a lot. Kyren Williams went out there and like you said, 22 for 102. That's good stuff. But when you combine that with the 45 attempts that Matthew Stafford had, that's a lot of offensive plays to get through. And it's a little bit boggling to me that they actually weren't feeding Kyren any more than 22. I mean, I know 22 carries is a lot, but I mean, we gave Josh Jacobs how many when we were playing? You gave him 32, I think, or 30 plus for sure. So it was a little bit boggling to me that they didn't keep going back to it. Now I know they were fighting from down, so you got to throw the ball, but they weren't that effective in the passing game. Now, the little short rinky-dink stuff, they were doing pretty well with it. Stafford did make quite a few plays downfield to stretch the defense a little bit, but at the end of the day, you got that tandem between Kyren Williams and Blake Corum, and Blake on the 5 carries he had, he still had 25 yards. That's 5 yards a carry. I mean, he was getting after it, and he was really, going downhill. So I was surprised that they didn't feed him more, especially when they had it running that well. Turning to the Packers, pretty typical. Josh Jacobs went 19 for 73, only 3.8 average, which isn't as high as we'd like it to see. Probably more in the 4.5 range is where we want him to be. But like I said last week, I wanted to see Josh Jacobs have more meaningful snaps, and I think this game, every snap he had, I would say almost every snap he had, it felt like there was some meaning behind it. He ran with authority. It seemed like the line wasn't just blocking because they had to. It seems like they really wanted to get him downfield. And of course, Emmanuel Wilson, being the backup guy, he's just doing his job, going out there for 6 for 24, just doing a good job. And I think at the end of the day, our running offense needs to just get a little bit better. Our running defense needs to really lock it in.
Yeah, and I totally agree. And now this week we do have a scrambling quarterback in Kyler Murray coming down, which is always scary for me. And I think we have to put a spy on him the whole game. I don't think you'll let him get a chance to not, because we've seen what he can do with his legs, even though he looks like a baby running with your car keys or something. He's a big guy, and it's just his helmet and everything else. But then we'll look. Let's move over to the receiving side of things. Kraft, 4 reception, 88 yards, 2 TDs. Really big game for the tight end. And I think we talked about it actually last week. The utilization of Kraft, Musgrave with Musgrave. Now he's going to be, it looks like, placed on IR with a hamstring. But Kraft had a really big game. And then on the other side, because their two top receivers were out, Whittington really kind of came and played. He did go out late at the end of the game, with an injury, but 7 receptions, 89 yards. But that brings me to my question here that I kind of created a promo for as well. How do you see Kraft's impact in the games now changing with this team? Because now they've seen what he can do. He's a big body pass catching tight end. And what do you think is going to happen for him moving forward?
No, just to take a step back, I think from the very beginning, a lot of people were thinking, and I was subject to too. I think that Musgrave was going to be the number one just because he had a little bit more of a receiving threat. We didn't use him too much in the run defense, and we really thought he was going to be the guy. Kraft is really making a name, and he is really just trying to get out there and do whatever he can and put his best out there on film. So I think from here on out, it's going to be awesome. He's a great blocker. He gets his nose dirty. He gets down in there. He's not afraid to, take a hit, and he's definitely not afraid to, put one out there. So I think he's going to be a phenomenal tight end for us, making history with one of the longest receptions in tight end history, or not. Excuse me. I'm sorry. That was last game. Cut that out. But I think he's going to do great. I think he's done a phenomenal job of just doing what the Packers are meant to do, which is just get out there, the ball on the ground, and get moving forward. He done a phenomenal job in the pass game, and he did an even better job blocking down the field. So I think he's going to be a really big, bright, shining star in the Packers offense. We just need to give him a little bit more time, and we just signed another backup tight end from the Falcons. So we'll see where he's got or what he's got to offer. And we'll see if we can't keep pushing that room forward because I like Musgrave, and I'm excited for him to come back. I wish he wasn't hurt. But I think him and Musgrave could have been this really big duo. Now we just need to see how that pans out. But I think Kraft is really going to try and take that number one spot from him.
Yeah, and I think Kraft, he's making plays with his legs and creating contact for himself, which is always different because, with a wide receiver, you necessarily don't want him to create contact. You're going to go down if you create contact. But with that tight end, barreling down at however fast, I think the fast he got was like 19 miles an hour. There was a statistic showing in that long run touchdown that he had. It was probably a 10, 15-yard pass, not even. And he kind of turned it up the sideline, just put a shoulder down. That is a tough man to tackle. And that's something I think a credit that the Packers are seeing now. How we can use our tight ends a little bit more efficiently, especially in those, third and long, I would say. Get the receivers out deeper, make that secondary go back, and then keep it in the contest with the linebackers for those tight ends. We have those two big tight ends, good pass-catching tight ends. I think they're going to win 9 out of 10 times if they're running at 19 miles an hour going straight at you. You're not going to be able to take them down, or else it's going to be painful to do so. And you might want to back away a little bit or try a different kind of tackle around the legs or something like that. But I really think it is interesting to see how Kraft is evolving as a player and creating his own opportunities on the offense, even when it was like, because that one he caught was 10 yards at most, and he caught it and kind of turned, and then he realized there was space ahead, and then there's a defensive back in front of him, and he's like, no way, this guy's taking me down. He's 6'5". I saw 6'5", 259. He's going to be a tough thing to take down. That's like, chopping down a tree there. And I really like what we're seeing with that, and I think this week Matt LaFleur definitely has an opportunity to expand on that, along with this fast and flying receiving core that I've always compared to like a row of Lamborghinis sitting there just waiting to go, because there's a lot of fast guys. Even with Wicks, with his drops, I think he's going to find it. Devontae Adams has had a lot of drops as a young player, and I think Wicks is going to evolve and learn how to pass catch, maybe not hear footsteps so quite loudly, because I know that's a thing with receivers, especially those smaller guys or guys hearing things. But I think he's going to be a phenomenal receiver. Jaden Reed's proving that he might be a potential number one on the team. Romeo Doubs is going to be back, which I think is going to be huge. Doubs brings a presence of pass catching and consistency, which I really like, and I don't think we had last week, but Tucker Kraft kind of made up for it. And it'll be interesting to see what they can do. Christian Watson, I think, still on the injury table a little bit just with him. And I mean, Bo Melton, he's actually a pretty consistent catch if he gets the ball in the right place. So he's fun to watch too. But let's keep moving forward. And let's talk about here. Now, it's kind of a debate question on both sides. So are you happier right now with the Packers offense or the Packers defense so far this season?
Me personally, I'm an offensive guy, so I love the offense. I'm very happy with them. Now, have we been the best offense we could be? No, but the thing about football is that there's plenty of weeks ahead. So we're just at the tip of the iceberg. We got plenty more to discover and plenty more plays that we can figure out that work just well for us. So I think combined with Jaden Reed just absolutely snapping and just getting everything he can and making every opportunity that he can, just racking up the yards. I think that he's going to keep being a bright shining light as long as we can keep him healthy, which we got to be mindful of because we give him the ball a lot, which is great, but that offers a lot more opportunities for him to get injured, a lot more opportunities for him to get hit. In the running game, he's been doing great getting those like end arounds or those sweeps. Again, awesome, but teams are going to start figuring that out. They're going to start stopping that, and that's when he's going to get hit, and he's going to get hit hard. So I think if we can keep this momentum of sharing the ball everywhere, because I'll be honest, this game we spread it out, but we didn't spread it out as much as I'd like. But that also comes with not having Christian Watson, not having Romeo Dobbs, and then bringing in Malik Heath, who is a great player, and I think he's also going to be a great player for us. He just hasn't had a lot of playing time. So I think once we get back to where we need to be, which is everyone's healthy, we got all our player makers out on the field, and we're just able to execute. I think once those three things come together, which again we don't need to peak right now, need to peak later on. So I think if we can just keep slowly evolving like we have, keep that steady pace, we're going to be a real threat towards the end of the year. So I think we're doing well. I think we could always do better, of course, but we have a lot of weapons, and Jordan Love is really starting to get comfortable, and I think he's only going to do better from here.
Yeah. I really liked what you talked about with the peaking side of things because I think right now, there's teams that are peaking. I shared a meme of the half-drawn horse, yeah, with the Vikings and whatever. The really nice, the butt part of it's really nice, but then the front end of it looks like crap. Or the back end of it looks like crap, excuse me. But I am really happy with the Packers defense and what they're doing in the side of turnovers. I don't think we've seen a defense like this getting those kind of turnovers, and it all starts with Mr. X, the man himself, Xavier McKinney. He gets another swipe in this contest. He's 5 for 5 on the season with swipes, and he's causing plays because he did have that fumble recovery too as well. So it's not like he's just in the pass game. He's doing really well on that defensive side, just getting up there and being within that creating contact. And that's a really good thing for especially a guy playing defensive back / safety, getting up there and making contact. And I think he's a really good role model for Javon Bullard to learn from because I think Javon's got a lot of learning. I think he's a really good player, a Georgia Bulldog that hits really hard. But I think the Packers defense has a lot of potential because our pass rush isn't even, I don't think, at full capacity right now. They're not getting to the quarterback. They're still just trying to figure things out within that system. But when they do mix things up, so they had a rush where they brought a guy delayed and then he went hooked around on the other side and they got a sack. So I think there's a lot of switching and just more movement as we're doing on the offense. We're one of the highest moving offenses pre-snap before the ball snapped. I think at defense, if we keep things moving and keep blocking assignments, rearranging that, we're going to be really destructive. And I think one player, Rashawn Gary, is going to be really good. I'd like to see more out of Lucas Van Ness. I was a little disappointed when he's getting pushed out around the outside and letting the quarterback step up. I'd like to see him get those cuts inside after that first contact and when he gets a little bit of a step, trying to get back inside. TJ Slayton had a really good camp, and I really think he is a player that can line up with Kenny Clark. Now, Kenny is on the injury report, I believe, as well. But TJ Slayton, I think he's got a lot more potential than what he's playing with. I saw him at camp. He looked really good. And it shocked everybody because everybody's like, who's 93? And then I'm like, he's been on the team for a couple of years, TJ Slayton. But I think he's really finding his step. Now, when Devontae Wyatt comes back, it gives him more rest. And that would make a supreme interior defense, just to kind of switch out players. But I think this defense has a lot of potential. Cooper now showing that he can play ball and he can play it at a high level. And then who's the guy with the sacks here this weekend? I'm blanking on his name, and I forgot to write it down.
Hold on, I got it right here. Let's see. Who got a sack? Oh, Edrin Cooper got a sack, which actually is awesome because that was my next question.
Yeah.
Who do you think is going to be the one that spies on Arizona? Because you mentioned
that's who I want spying. That's who I want spying.
Okay.
He's got good speed.
That's why I thought so.
He's mobile. He's slippery. And he can get, if he has to, into the backfield, but he can also work the outsides. I like his lateral movement so far from what I've seen. Now, there hasn't been a ton for him because he did come off an injury in the offseason and kind of worked his way in. He was really good, and I think he's going to be a really good spy, especially this week with Arizona coming into town. They play a very complex offense, too. Kyler Murray's a menace, and and if he runs for more than, I'm going to give him 40 yards, given at least, because he's going to get those. He's going to get some snaps. He's going to get those RPOs, and he's going to get his yards. But if we let him go over in excessive, because we're a team that's notably bad with running quarterbacks, and we've always been kind of that way, like defending against them, and it drives me absolutely bonkers because I don't think his arm strength is quite at where, some of the other quarterbacks are. But I think his legs are right up there with some of the best of them. But how do you think we stop Arizona's offense with the defense this week?
In general, we just got to, like you said, you just got to contain. They got a great running back in Connor, and they're just going to keep pushing that ball. Kyler, we can make all the jokes in the world that we want, but he's a good player, and he really just goes out there and he tries the ball, whether that's with his legs or his arm. He's going to try it one way or the other. So I agree, 40 yards is probably a good. Hopefully we can hold him to under 40, but I imagine if he breaks contain a few times, he's probably going to get over that. I would put Cooper in there 100% to be that spy player. He's got that great lateral quickness, and he gets downhill. The play that I keep thinking about towards the end of the game, they threw a little Stafford threw a little dump route to the left side, and I think Nixon actually came down, blew it up, but he didn't get the full tackle, and then you just see Cooper come out of nowhere and just light him up. I'm really impressed with him and how he's been playing. I think number 56 is going to be good in the middle of the field. Unfortunately, I don't think Quay is going to be the guy that's going to stay with Kyler. Quay's a big hitter, and he's a great run stopper, and he gets back in that pass defense. However, he's not the fastest guy, and that's just, to put it simple, he probably isn't going to be catching Kyler Murray in those situations. So I'd like to see Edrin get a few more opportunities in that sense. But I think if we are able to stop the run and contain Kyler, I think making them rely on his arm is going to become our benefit. Specifically, we got Xavier back there.
Yeah.
It's just really hard to pass on that guy. Stafford tried to throw, I believe, 3 or 4 corner routes before he finally just threw it in the wrong spot, and Xavier went up and got it. He's sitting back there. He's waiting. I feel like when you watch Xavier play, it's almost like he's baiting the quarterback.
Oh, yeah.
He's like, he looks like he's not in position, but he's just got that mindset where he's like, I know he wants to go here. I'm going to give him that extra 2 yards. I know I can make that up before he gets that ball out of his hands, and he just attacks. And he really should.
And welcome back, ladies and gentlemen. We do apologize, a little bit of technical difficulties on our end. So we are going to move forward here. We were talking about X's impact on that defense, talking about how he's been a ball hawk all season long and continues to be continues to cause turnovers all over the place for those Packers, our favorite Packers team. But let's move now to the injury report, because there is a quite in-depth injury report here on the Thursday evening that we are looking at it. Jair Alexander had limited practice. It looks like Zane Anderson was full participation. Edrin Cooper, limited participation. And then pretty much all limited participation except for, it looks like Musgrave did not participate in today's contest. It looked like the good one is Zach Tom. He was in full participation in practice. And a couple other notables, Devontae Wyatt did not participate, which is kind of, we were just talking about him and making an impact with that defensive line. But Carter, what do you think with going on here with the injury report? Any notables that you're looking at? Any cause for concern with that Kyler Murray scrambling?
With the Kyler Murray scrambling, I mean, we really need Ja back, and I think he is set to get back here this week, if not next week. But we need Ja back. I hate to put the rags on anybody, but let's be honest. According to a lot of statistics, Eric Stokes is just not performing, and especially this last game, I think he was our lowest graded performer on the field. So it wasn't a good showing for him. I'd love to say he got injured and this is kind of his comeback and everything like that, but it seems like he's missing a step. And unfortunately, well, fortunately, but unfortunately for somebody, our rookies are really stepping up and they're making a big difference in a big way. They're doing it on the big plays. They're not just making the little plays. They're making it all over. So I think we really need Ja back. Like you said, I think as long as our D line stays healthy and gets back out there on the field, I think that's going to be great because, like you said, we haven't been getting the greatest pressures on our quarterbacks or on quarterbacks as a defense. What we have been doing a great job is at least keeping them somewhat contained. We haven't been, letting them out the pocket in extreme fashion. Now, of course, Matthew Stafford's really not going to be running that much. He's a little bit on the older side. But I think if we're able to just keep him in the pocket and force Kyler to try to look over everyone in front of him and try to force those passes downfield, I think that's going to really be the game breaker for us. We don't need to sack him. We don't need to, keep him, to less than 40 yards. Now that'd be great, as long as we can just maintain him, keep him in that pocket. Don't let him make any huge plays. Let him dink it and dunk it down the field, and I think our offense will take over the game and just make sure that we come out with the win.
Yeah, and I think a big thing is going to be just making him throw, as we mentioned before. Don't let him scramble. Don't let him get active with his legs. We struggle with guys with legs. We always have, always will. I swear we can't find a defensive coordinator that can figure that out. And it's always been a problem for every team. I think that isn't used to having too many running quarterbacks in their division. We have more pocket passing, I would say, in the North. But with that, I think we should do a score prediction for the Cardinals and Packers game here at Lambeau. Carter, would you like to take it away and give us our first prediction here?
I'm going bold. I think this is going to be the game where we just finally lock it in. Offensively, Dobbs is going to be back. We're still missing Christian, but having Dobbs out there is just another weapon that we can have. If we can get him going, if we can get Reed continually going, and then of course Kraft, Jacobs out of the backfield, which he had one big one for a small little dump for 21 yards, 22 yards, a good chunk towards the end of the game that put us, right back out there on the field. So I think. Our offense is just going to start clicking, and I think we're actually going to end up 34-17. A little bit closer than, or excuse me, a little bit wider of a gap than we've seen so far this year. However, the last time we played the Cardinals, or at least the last memorable time we played the Cardinals, we had a really good game defensively, and we really, held them to it, and we came out with the W. So I think this is going to be a replication of that, and I think it's going to be a good game for us. Not so much for the Cards, though.
Yeah, and I'm going to go on the bold side too. Once again, predicting Packers all the way. But I'm going to go 28-10. I think we can hold them inside the pocket. I think they get, a slippery touchdown, probably to Marvin Harrison Jr., who's going to, if we don't have Jair, is going to be probably a problem in a way. But I think, Valentine can take care of them, at least hold them within yards, and we can do some real damage there. But I think if we can contain the quarterback, that's going to be the biggest situation that we have to take care of. Now, can Kyler escape, make more plays? Certainly he can, but I don't think he's gonna. I think the defense, I think Jeff Hafley's got a really good defense lined up, and I think we should be, just a really solid performance here from the Cardinals. Like you said, we traditionally play the Cardinals pretty well. We've had some pretty big moments against them, and it'll be interesting to see what we can do in that contest here this Sunday, right at Lambeau.
Right. The one thing I will say is that our scramble defense, which really isn't a defense, but when the quarterback ends up scrambling and he's extending those plays, I think that's where it gets scary for me. Our defense is great, especially our pass defense is pretty great. But when the play starts getting a little bit more extended than that 3 to 5 second range, we start to fall off a little bit, which again, it's hard for any defense to stay glued for more than that. So I think that's what really scares me. So I think if we can keep him in the pocket and keep him from, doing this little scramble drill where he's running back and forth sideline to sideline, just hucking the ball up there, I know Marvin Harrison is going to come down with a few of them. Excuse me, Marvin Harrison Jr. I know he's going to come down with a few of them, so that's inevitable. And I know James Conner is going to probably break a run or two. It's inevitable. I think if we can just keep them where they are, keep them contained, we're going to have a good day.
Yeah, and I agree with that fully. Marvin's going to get his catches. You just know it. And but I think if you contain Kyler, that's the biggest thing for that defense, keeping that a main focus. And I think Cooper's going to have to play that spy position, and he'll do just fine at doing it. He's slippery, he's quick, he can hit hard, and I don't think if he gets, we see Murray get outside the pocket, he's not going to probably want to do it a lot if Cooper's making contact with them because it's going to feel it, but given it's probably going to be a slide before anything else. But let's move on to the other NFC North teams and chat a little bit about them. The Bears. They kind of put the hammer down on the Panthers, which I really kind of was like, you're up so much by this much time, just trying to stat pad Caleb Williams a little bit. Question mark. But let's talk about it. Bears beat the Panthers 36-10. Williams 20 for 29 and 304 yards, 2 TDs in the contest. Bears fans pretty pumped by this. I guess I don't see. I mean, it's the Panthers. It's like beating up on a Pop Warner team at that point. It's not.
Seriously.
I mean, when you're up, so they're up by 23 at the end of the third quarter, and they still kept them in, and it was like, really, you're gonna keep playing them? But I guess get the reps. Don't know really what was going through Eberflus besides he's just trying to show that Caleb Williams is their guy in a game that really is kind of a dumpster fire. But nonetheless, they are an NFL team, so we can't discredit that. But Bears fans were really pumped by this performance, and there was a lot of talk on the social media that Caleb Williams has finally made it. He's making it. And again, they're on the Super Bowl train. Immediately once they get a win, we were talking about that last week, Super Bowl or bust for them every year, it seems like. And you just feel bad. Because it's like, guys, like, just give him some time. But my question is, was this a bit of stat padding for Williams, you think? I mean, up by 23 at the end of third quarter. You clearly had control. You could have put in the backups and could have seen some other reps, but they kept in the starters. They kept playing hammer down football. And I think, the only real notable player on that team is probably Adam Thielen, who's got to be, 39 or something like that.
He's up there. Maybe not that old, but he's pretty good.
I mean, he's getting up there. Yeah, probably 35, somewhere 30. But anyways, there's not very much talent in the Panthers. I always said it's a franchise that if there was one to burn it down, restart, it would be them. But what were your thoughts on that game? What was, did you think there's a little stat padding going on there? I'm on the stat padding side of things there, Carter, so you know that.
It's an interesting way to look at it. I'll be honest with you, because it does seem a little screwy when you have that big of a lead going into the fourth and you decide to keep all your players out there. However, if you're the Bears and you have yet to have a really good game where you just felt like it was a team and it wasn't just like, you happened to make a play. We happened to make another play. Okay, now we somehow got this. I feel like as an organization, they needed it. And like you said, Eberflus needed it. He needed to show not only his team, he had to show everybody else, like the fans and the other coaches and their, higher ups above them. He had to show them that they have something. I'll be honest. I think his job might be a little bit on the line, having 2 first-round pick quarterbacks back to back, and doing nothing with the first to see him go do better somewhere else, and then having another first-round pick quarterback, and you're not really getting that train running with all the weapons that you have around him. So I think they needed it. I really think that, like you said, it was like beating up a Pop Warner team. I mean, unfortunately, the Panthers are just not good this year.
Oh, they're never good.
Well, yeah, I mean, they haven't been good
They
since
had 2015. That was
Cam
it.
Newton.
Yeah, Cam Newton.
Right. So I mean, it's hard to look at that game and be like, oh, they're just pad stats, but they really needed it. I mean, at the end of the day, they need confidence. Caleb Williams needs confidence. Their receivers need confidence in their quarterback because you have DJ Moore out there and you have those weapons out there. And I'll be honest, sometimes some of those guys can be divas and they start getting in that mindset of like, I should be getting the ball more, or that ball should have been here. And then they start disconnecting and then they're not in it together. Now they're in it for themselves. So I think this was a game that they actually needed. Did they need to beat them up like that? Or could they have just ran the ball towards the end and just gave Swift the ball or gave the backup the ball? Yeah. but they needed to prove to themselves and to everybody else around the league that they actually are a contender and that they have some weapons on their side. So I think it was a must-win for them. I think it needed to be a beating. If they would have won by like 3 points or something, I think that would have been a completely different conversation. I think Eberflus would be sweating pretty hard right now. But at the end of the day, Pat statting, yeah, maybe, but they needed it. They needed something to really get a spark under them to say, hey, we can go for 300 yards. We can get out there and get some touchdowns. Um, I think it's just kind of a meh game. I mean, looking from an outside perspective, it's like
Yeah.
meh, you won, congratulations. But from the inside, they were like, yeah, we did it. All right, good job.
Yeah, you won your Super Bowl this season. Congratulations. Even if it's against the Panthers, get kill booms, those 300 yards, whatever you want to call it. But let's move on to the other team that I really don't like. Vikings continue their Linsanity run by beating the Jets and Aaron Rodgers. Aaron Rodgers, look, I mean, I know I don't want to admit it might be the Vikings defense, but Aaron Rodgers didn't look good. They won 23-17 in that contest. Darnold, 14 for 31, though, 179 yards and 1 interception. So really didn't have that phenomenal of a game. So you can definitely count on that. I guess if you're a Vikings fan, talk about that defense a little bit. They're making plays and they're making it happen. They caused Rodgers to turn the ball over, which obviously we talked about before. Very unconventional for him, but he is getting to that older age, and he really just didn't look like himself at all. But yeah, the Vikings continue their ways. And what was your thoughts on that game in London there? That was an early morning game. I actually didn't catch it because I was tired, and I was just waiting for that noon one because I really couldn't care to watch the Vikings beat on the Jets, even though I thought the Jets were going to win. Come on, JTS at Jets.
Yeah, right.
But yeah, let's talk about it.
I did wake up early. I was like, you know what? I want to watch this game. I want to see because I'm an Aaron Rodgers fan. Now, what I will also start by saying is that I am glad that he is a Jet now. I think that's where he needs to be, and I think we're in a much better place than we were. Which is kind of weird to say, especially when you have a champion quarterback who is admittedly the GOAT besides Tom Brady. But I think right now it's just not clicking. And I've heard some talks. I've had a few conversations with some of my people over here, and they seem to think that it's a lack of offensive talent, which I don't necessarily disagree with.
He got the guys he wanted.
Not putting out there, right? They just don't seem to be putting it out there. They don't seem to be putting together the talent that they have out on the field. I don't think that they don't have the players. I just don't think that they're performing right. I think them losing Nathaniel Hackett as their offensive coordinator is going to tee Rodgers off. And it's probably not going to be great next week because he's going to be rebelling against the system. He's going to be calling his own plays. He's going to do whatever Rodgers wants to do because, let's be honest, he's going to take that Hackett a little to the heart, which is okay. However, I think at the end of the day, it's actually probably going to be beneficial for them because that system, let's be honest, it just wasn't good. Throw it to Garrett Wilson 8 or 9 times a game, and there's only so much one player can do. Now, you turn the ball over 3 times, kind of hard not to say that the Vikings defense is elite and that they're really showing out. You are also correct in that Sam Darnold didn't have that great of a game. Their defense really stepped up, said, we'll take the reins on this one. We're going to get Rodgers. As soon as they got that first one, they were confident. And they just kept going out there and just getting after it and getting after him and him super uncomfortable to the point where you saw frustrated Rodgers again, just off, not performing well. He did have that small moment. I'm not sure if you saw the clip where got hurt, looked like he was doing a Fortnite crawl and he was all injured. Gets pulled off the field, figures out that they're still rolling, goes right back out there. So I will say that was pretty badass. It was really cool to see him just put that helmet back on, say, no, I'm going to go try and win this game. And then he fell short and threw an interception, which not what he was going for, but you know what? It looked pretty cool in the moment.
Yeah, definitely something to look forward to for them because they are on the bye week this week. The Vikings are. And we didn't talk about the Bears. I forgot to mention it. They are going to be in London. Now, they go against the Jaguars. Jaguars seem to be... Why don't they just move the team to London at this point? They play there every year. Every year. And the Jaguars this year are dumpster fire as, Doug Peterson's holding on for his life like the cat from the inspirational posters where it says hang in there. Doug Peterson's going to be there. But let's talk about the Bears-Jaguars real quick just to highlight it. And then I got one more thing on the Vikings that we'll talk about before moving forward once again. So what's your prediction for that one?
For that game, I think the Bears are going to come back out on top. I think the Jags are they just
Dude,
can't
I
seem
know
to. It doesn't
it
seem like it's
bothers me
their year.
too. They have
It does
weapons.
because they have what they need, and I thought Trevor Lawrence is a good quarterback. Seems like ever since he got his bag and had his child, he's just been distracted. Which I mean, what can you blame him for? But it just doesn't seem like they're out there producing like they should. And I don't know if that's an offensive fault or a defensive fault because I've been paying attention, but not that close attention to the Jaguars. But I think this is also another must win for the Bears. They know that they're better than this team. The league knows that they're better than this team. I'm willing to bet that most of the betting odds are actually in the favor of the Bears. So I think this is another one that they got to go get. And if they don't get it, it's going to be a hard one to really swallow. I mean, if they had lost to the Panthers, it would have been really, really tough for them. So this is going to be another must-win game for them. I think the Bears have the ability to come out on top. However, me being a hater, I would love to see Jacksonville go out there to London, wake up bright and early, and just go tear it up.
Yeah, I'm on the same page. I want to see the Jaguars win, but I don't think they're going to win. Now they do kind of have I would say a home field advantage in London, just because they're always over there. In a way, in a sense, I mean Jacksonville. I don't know. It's a mess. And Doug Peterson thought he's going to be the guy to fix it. Not doesn't seem like it's happening so quite well. But I think the Bears do get this one. They might slip by. I think it's going to be a close contest. I think Trevor Lawrence does have a pretty good game. ATN in the backfield hopefully gets some carries. But I think it's going to be a Bears win. Probably it's going to be a low-scoring affair. I'm going to say like 17-13, somewhere in that ballpark where I have it. No team really plays that well in London. It's always seems like a struggle, and the field's always something wrong with it. I never understand why the NFL has to go to London to expand the game. It was like when they went to Sao Paulo for Brazil. Like, why are we going there? They just don't have the thing. But what's your
Like
score prediction?
my score prediction is going to be, like you said, low scoring. I think the Jags are only going to be kicking field goals. I don't think that they're going to get in the end zone. Or if they do, it's going to be once. So I imagine it's probably going to be somewhere like maybe say 12. I'd say 12-17. I think that's a good. It's going to be a lot of field goal kicking. It's going to be a lot of lackluster offensive performances. I think it's going to be a defensive game at the end of the day. I imagine there's probably going to be 1 to 2 turnovers each. It's not going to be a clean game. I think this is going to be a very, down to the last minute, just trying to tough it out. Whoever can just end up with the ball last is going to be the one that wins. So I don't necessarily think this is going to be a great game, but I still think the Bears are going to need to come out on top on this one.
Yeah, and then I said I was going to circle back to the Vikings real quick. The one thing I wanted to note, I'm sure you've already seen it, was that 2016 season that they had. They started out 5-0 as well, had the bye week going on week 5 or 6. And then they went, I believe, I mean, it was loss, 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 win, loss, loss, win, loss, 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 win. So I think there may be a chance that happens this year. I just want to give the Vikings fans a little shout out, say I'm watching you guys. I know you guys are 5-0 riding high, but I think the Lynn Sandy run ends. But let's move on real quick. Just kind of keep things moving. I know we did have a couple technical difficulties, kind of picking up where we left off. Lions had the bye week to come back to the Cowboys. Who gets that contest?
Ooh. You know, I'd hate to root because I don't really enjoy either of those teams.
Oh, I can't stand either of them.
However,
I'm
I
feeling well
think
to
that
say it.
Dallas is right. Yeah, I mean, let's be honest. I don't really like either of those teams. I'm not a Dallas fan. I think, yeah, every time I see Dallas lose, a little bit of me's like,
Oh, every
um,
time I see it, it's a dub.
it's a dub. Um, let's put it like this. I got Jared Goff in my fantasy. I think he needs to snap, and I think they have the ability to play better than the Dallas Cowboys. The Cowboys are just in a rut right now. Uh, they're playing some easier teams, and they've gotten those easier wins, but they just don't look great. Dak is just not looking like he should. Like he just got paid that much money. He doesn't look like he should be. He should have been paid that much, which is just what it looks like right now. But of course, we got a lot of football left, so I wouldn't be surprised if Dallas, made a run towards the end and started really kicking it into high gear. But right now, they're they're ripe for the taking. So I think the Lions are going to come out on this one. I think it's going to be a higher scoring affair. Goff loves to throw that ball, and I think their running game really is good, and they haven't utilized it as much as they need to with Jameer Gibbs back there, and of course. Um, with their other running back, I think that they got a great tandem back there, and I think if they can just put it together, they're going to do just fine. I think it's probably going to be closer to I think it's going to break 40. Imagine maybe somewhere like 38 to maybe 34 or something like that, or maybe that'd be my prediction. It's going to be high. It's going to be in the 30s. Neither team is going to have very much defensive say about it. I know the Dallas Cowboys got a great defense, supposedly.
Yeah,
Supposedly.
supposedly. They always say they have a great defense.
Right. Supposedly, but it just seems like the Detroit Lions just go out there and they got an offense. So I think it's going to be a high-scoring affair.
Yeah, and I believe Kirby Joseph's out for that one as of right now. So that would be a big hit to the Lions. But I'm going to go same thing. I'm going to say 28-24. I'm going to go Cowboys, though. I want to see the Cowboys upset them just because I can't stand the Lions anymore right now. I don't think the Cowboys are a real threat. I don't think they're ever going to be a threat for a while as long as Jerry's owning them. So if they are in the playoffs, I think, like I said, it's a dub. They just never really kind of formulate. There's a lot of offseason tension with Jerry not signing players and holding out, especially with CD Lamb. And then Micah Parsons noticed it, and his contract's coming up. Dak got paid, but it was a little late, too, I guess, for comfort amongst players. So I think there's a lot more problems that are under the surface for Dallas. Yes, they got that win, I believe, Thursday night, and they kind of revitalized everything, it seemed like, but I really don't think they're revitalized after one win. I think there's a lot more underlying problems with Jerry Jones and his way of or doing business in the organization. But I will give them the win over the Lions. I just want to see the Lions lose. Can't stand them. They used to be such a humble and quiet team, and now all their fans came out of the caves, and yeah, they really just kind of come after me. But let's move on to other NFL news here. I know you're laughing a little bit. The Davante Adams trade still looming. A lot of information there. It's kind of a hot mess, and that's another team or another situation where Adams said he doesn't want to go to the Saints. He said he announced this week that he would retire if he got traded to the Saints, which I think is a little bit of an overdraw. He's kind of limiting himself to the Jets right now. I think Kansas City's still in talks. I think Steelers have bailed out because they just don't want to deal with the mess anymore. And that salary cap hit. And then also the other underlying factor in this trade situation was Max Crosby announcing that he wants it to be a package deal where they get the two players. But you know how large of a salary cap hit you're taking and how much money that's going to be. So I don't think it's going to be that situation necessarily with the package deal. But what are your thoughts on the Davante situation? Where's he going? What's your thinking behind that?
Love I love how Max Crosby has gone with that angle because if you watch a few of the interviews, he says in an interview, he's like, "Think I don't love this team? I got this tatted on me." But in the same breath, you're also gonna say, "Yeah, but if Devontae leaves, I'm leaving." So like, do you love the team or do you love Devontae?
Well,
Because
tattoos can be removed.
that is true. You could get it, or you could get it covered up. But it's
Yep.
like, okay, so don't act like you wanna be here because
Nobody wants
if
to be
you
in.
really wanted to be there, yeah, right. You would be like, okay, Devontae, take off because guess what? He takes off. That opens up the salary cap. That's going to open up for possible picks if the trade obviously goes through, and it's probably going to end up benefiting the team because right now the Raiders are, let's be honest, not where anyone really wants to be. Their quarterback situation's not great. Their offensive line situation's not the best. Devontae's been hurt the last few weeks, and clearly the Raiders have been missing him. Even when he is on the field, they're not really getting him the ball. And again, that just comes back to the quarterback situation. You don't have that premier starting quarterback. Now, in relation to everyone else in the league, he just saw the Saints get tanked
Yep.
and Derek Carr. So, like, he doesn't want to go there now midseason. And
But it
I
is
don't know
with
if I
his
said
buddy.
right. You would think he'd, and that was the other thing. I think I had mentioned this to my lady friend. Why would you bring Devonte Adams there just to get rid of Derek Carr the next year? That felt like a really shady move to me from the standpoint of the Raiders. But I mean, he clearly saw that it wasn't working out the year that they had. They just couldn't connect. They weren't on the same page like everyone thought they were going to be this great dynamic duo. And it just didn't work out. So I don't think he goes to the Saints. I definitely don't think that he goes to the Steelers. I think you're right. They just don't want to deal with that mess. They got Pickens right now that's
Yeah,
throwing
he's a
attitude
mess.
every single
A
direction.
medium
They don't
nightmare.
want to right. They don't want to bring in more heat because then if you bring in Devontae, you're going to lose Pickens, and Pickens is going to be like, well, then screw you guys, trade me then, because if you don't think I'm the number one receiver, then I don't want to be here. So that's going to cause way too many problems for them. I think the Jets would be absolutely insane to think that that's going to be a great thing that works out for them, because let's think about it. If you bring in Devontae, who do you lose?
But
Do
if
you
there's
lose
a
Lazard?
team, if there's a team to make that kind of move, I feel like it's the Jets because they've kind of sold on the Rodgers thing. They brought in all the
Yeah.
old guys. They have Lazard and Cobb at one time. Remember when they had him and everybody else? They kind of just bent over and said, "Here we go. Let's just bring in the Packers
Let's the
from
Rodgers. Right.
2017."
Let's make this, Green Bay part two. And
Yep.
I just think that that's a horrible, horrible decision process, or a decision making process to follow, because you obviously Aaron's not playing great right now,
No,
and
he's
that
not.
feels it. I don't like to say that, because for the longest, since I've known, he's been my quarterback, and he's been crushing it for the Green Bay Packers. So to see him to go and just not perform like I know he can, or that he has in the past, it sucks to see. But from a purely business standpoint, you can't think that that's going to be a good thing for Devontae. Can't think that that's going to be a good thing for him, because he's not going to probably get the ball that much. And if he does get the ball, he's probably going to get put into a coffin, or Aaron's going to get hurt again, and then he's back to square one, where he's got another backup quarterback. He's just going to have to deal with the same thing. So I don't think that if he wants to play this game for longer than another year, I'll be honest, I don't think Rodgers has got full four under him. I think he's probably got this year, and
Yeah.
probably, yeah, I'll be honest, I would not be surprised if Aaron Rodgers just retired at the end of the year. Just said, screw it, I'm done. I don't need to do this anymore, and just didn't want to do it. So I think for Devontae, if you're only willing to play for one more year and then maybe find some other situation where you're going to get paid not great and you're just going to, kind of whittle away, I think he can do it. I think the Jets could possibly make it, but you're Devontae Adams and you want a long career and you don't want to just throw it all away for Aaron Rodgers, I think you got to go with the Chiefs. If the Chiefs can somehow work that out with him and work it out to where it's a multi-year deal, which again, really far-fetched because of salary cap reasons and all that kind of stuff, but they can work something out with him, I think that's just going to be a deadly team. And I'll be honest, it probably sounds like cheating, getting Devontae Adams and Patrick Mahomes on the same field, but I
It is
don't think it's
cheating.
a great idea. I think Devontae really screwed up by leaving Green
Yeah,
Bay.
he did.
I'll be 100% honest. I think if he would have stayed in Green Bay, he would have had Jordan Love, and he would have been the number one receiver and still putting up amazing numbers. But he made his decision. He wanted to go somewhere warm. He wanted the money, and he chased his bag, which can't blame him for it. He wants the bag. Now it's coming to bite him in the ass. And clearly, he doesn't have a quarterback, and he's not getting the ball anymore. And he's not putting up great numbers, and he's unfortunately whittling away there. So I think a leave is inevitable. I just don't know if the Jets is really going to be the place for him to go.
Yeah, and I want to just bring up one more thing on that. When he did leave, I think at first it was a stinger. Obviously you don't want to see your number one guy leave, and but I think as most Packer fans have realized, there are a lot more weapons out there with multiple pieces. Maybe not quite as talented as Adams as a single player, but he was such a kind of like a Randy Moss. He has to get this many touches in that game because towards his end of time with Green Bay, we look back to like the San Francisco game in the playoffs. He was the only receiver that touched the ball, and it was yes he does get open, but he also I think wants so many catches, so many this and that, and Rodgers was willing to give it to him. And I think with the organization, once they said, well, you're not going to take the franchise tag, you're not going to make a team move, maybe it's time for us to look towards a different direction and moving on. I think that was the best move the Packers could have made. It was obviously tough at first. I was like, oh boy, what are we doing? We're going to restart from square one. And we found our way. I mean, we got Dobbs, we got Watson. They all kind of sat, I think they sat like a year under with Adams, and then but he left, and then they kind of took the leadership role. Now we have Reed, Wicks, Melton, Heath, you mentioned before. All guys making plays and all guys doing great things for that offense. So I think it was one of those moments that seemed like, oh, that was a bad move at the beginning. But then as you realized and learned a little bit more, you're like, oh, that actually worked out quite well. And I think that was really kind of a positive thing for the Packers as a whole and as an organization. We kind of built more of a team rather than, oh, it has to get to Adams so many times. and we have to get that many catches. And it seems like we dodged a headache. Um,
I, yeah, I think that's a great point. I mean, if he does go to the Jets, Aaron's just want to give it to him. He's just going to want to give it
yep.
to him,
And they
and
got
that's going
like
to piss
guys like
Barrett
Garrett
off,
Wilson there.
piss Allen off. Right. Like, what do you do with all that extra talent? You got to get him the ball, but he's going to be so selfish that he's not going to want to. So I don't think that's a great decision.
Yeah.
I agree. We made a team off of that trade, and we had clearly. I 100% agree with you. I thought it was kind of a bad trade at the beginning. I was like, we just lost our best receiver, and he's the GOAT receiver. Like, he's just that good.
Yeah.
Now looking back on it, it's almost was the best decision because now we have four great wide receivers, or maybe not great, maybe great's too far. We have four pretty good wide receivers who can make up for it because Love is the type of player who's going to just get it to the open man.
He spreads
He's not
the
going to
love.
play favorites. Right, he spreads the love. So I think this is the best situation. I feel bad for Devontae. I feel bad for Aaron
It was
because I
his
want them to
choice.
be
It was Aaron's
successful.
choice.
But you're right. It was his choice at the end of the day. And look at this is the consequences of your actions, man.
Yep.
You lost your best friend in Hackett now. Robert Sala's gone, which he claimed was his like one of his best friends too, and it was sad to see him go, but I don't know if that's really true. So it just seems like they made their bed and now they're laying in it, and Green Bay is still doing Green Bay things. We're just continuing on without them, and it's sad to see. But at the same time, you guys doubted the city. You doubted the amount of consistency that comes out of here, and you doubted the green and gold. And now look at you. Now you're trying to play the green and gold and be the green and gold. So I'm happy where we're at. Sad to see those guys leave, but I wish them the
Yeah.
best in the future. The Packers are just awesome, though. So I think they made their mistakes, and we're going to be the better for it.
Yep. And let's just talk a little bit here. You did mention it. Robert Salah getting fired. Do you think Aaron Rodgers had anything to do with it?
Ooh, you don't want to even get me started on that. I'm an Aaron Rodgers
I know
conspiracy
you are.
theorist.
I
I'm
am
on
too.
with
I have
him.
a cutout of him.
I really think, everything I've read, because I've been trying to dig so deep on finding anyone that'll say anything about him giving his opinion, but everything so far has been, no, he didn't have anything to say, or no, it wasn't his decision. Really kind of seems like it because ever since that he got there, it just seems like they've not really connected and
Yeah,
they've
the
been butting
hug.
heads. And right, the hug, which he said was, no, we're not a hugging guy. We're
Now 2 weeks
forcing
later, he's
whatever.
fired. Yeah.
Right. Seems a little conspicuous. So eh, I think he had a pretty good play in it. I think Aaron Rodgers' voice, whether it's his voice or his actions, I think they are very, very loud. And unfortunately, I think a lot of the players just rally behind Rodgers. They want to rally behind Rodgers because they know he's the GOAT. So when he says something, whether they firmly believe it or not, I think that they're going to listen to him regardless even over their head coach, because when you look at they're the same age, and it's tough to kind of see that dynamic play out properly, especially when you have a quarterback who is clearly doing his own thing and like has got his own, he's in his own little universe. So I think he did. Everyone says that he doesn't, but I personally think he wanted Nathaniel Hackett to get the job because he was out there in Denver, and I think that he wanted his friend to get the job, and he didn't. So that's another reason I think that Aaron might actually retire by the end of this year.
And the one thing I just want to add to it is I would like to see Salah come to Green Bay. I think a defensive assistant would be a great position for him. He was great with the 49ers before he went to the Jets. He was a great coach, defensive mind. I think he could really help that defense a lot. And I think it would just be kind of, not necessarily kicking the balls, but, it's a little kick, razor scooter to the shin. Just like, oh, he got fired here, but we pick him up because we never get that side of the deal. We're always the guys that get like the, Aaron Jones goes to the Vikings kind of thing. We're always that kind of deal. We never really get that. So I think it would just be a little fun just to see him come over to the green and gold, see what he can do, help out that defense a little bit, because he is a good coach, and I really think he has a lot of positive things. But yes, I think Rodgers did have a big impact on that team. I think in the Jets organization, there are a lot of sycophants. Now, you can look up that word, but it means you're just following along with what's happening. And I think the Jets right now, they're so desperate to try to get something mustered up that they're just buying into the Rodgers thing. They paid him a bunch of money, obviously. So you gotta kind of you gotta follow the man with the money and the paycheck that you gave all kind of all the reins to. And I don't think what's his name, something. The owner is a really real great owner. He doesn't really make football decisions. That's why the Jets have been mediocre for the last number of years, and they haven't really got anything going. Now their partners, the Giants, they had really good runs and they got a couple Super Bowls. Well, in the early 2000s, that sort of thing. But they had good teams, and the Jets have really never been relevant since the Mark Sanchez butt fumble against the Patriots, if we bring that up. But I think, Rodgers obviously had a lot to do with the situation. I think he said, we saw it right on the hug there. He wasn't real happy with what was happening in that situation, in that room, in the locker room, I'm guessing. And I think there was more to come, because when he gave that interview, he's like, oh yeah, we just don't hug. And I'm like, Rodgers, you weren't ever a big hugger, but you would hug guys like McCarthy and LaFleur, when you made big plays. But for whatever reason, you make a big play and then you push the guy off, and not even like open up the arms. He kind of like tucked his hands in and pushed right out the chest. So he didn't even allow the opportunity. So I think there was definitely more going on there, and definitely more to be uncovered. And I think there's going to be even more changes within the organization as they move forward into the season, because I think now they're kind of hitting the panic alarm, trying to figure out something to do.
That was actually going to be my next question. With the amount of changes that they've made in the last few hours, what do you think? How do you think Rodgers is going to react to this kind of change? He lost his best man, and now he's got to deal with a new one and a new head coach. So, what do you think? What's his reaction to all this?
My guess, and I really do like Rodgers. I like him a lot, but he is very much involved in himself and doesn't care what typically other people do. I think he's going to shut people out. He's going to allow a certain amount of people in. He'll keep his circle, but he's going to keep certain people out. I think that's what he always kind of does when things get tricky. I don't think he's a real great communicator, especially in those kind of situations where he's seeing things not go necessarily his direction. But things haven't worked out for the Jets. So I think if I'm the Jets owner and I'm the Jets GM, I got to do the football decision. I don't care at this rate. I got to stop playing the puppet game of saying, oh, we need this for Rodgers, this for Rodgers, this for Rodgers, this for Rodgers. Now looking at Devontae Adams, let's try getting him here, but we'll take this huge salary cap hit, lose a couple draft picks in the process, and probably Garrett Wilson at least, or maybe an Alan Lazard, depending on who they're willing to give up in the process as well. So I think there's a lot of circumstances that are coming from it. I think there's going to be more changes that are not necessarily which Rodgers doesn't necessarily agree with. I don't know who it's going to be, but it might be the water boy. He might not bring out the coldest, crispest water that he possibly could, but we'll see. It'll be interesting. What's your thoughts?
I don't even know. Like, I don't know what he does. That's why I'm so. That's why I've almost convinced
myself. He might go on a darkness
retire.
retreat. We don't know what he's going to do.
Right. He might bye week. He might just be like, all right, and he just shuts down. We don't know. So I think it's going to be one hell of a dumpster fire. I mean, I think if they try to make even more moves than they've already had and not just let the dust settle and they try to go get Adams, I think that's just you're going to tee up
it's just
all
gonna keep,
of your players.
Kindling.
You're just going to keep setting ablaze, and you're going to try and convince yourself that it's like, all right, Super Bowl or bust. We got Rodgers, we got Adams, we got Garrett, we got Sauce on the backside, we got Williams on the backside. Let's just go for it. And then a year where everyone leaves because Garrett probably won't stay there once he wants his big contract after his 4. Allen's going to be retired here pretty soon, or he's going to go to another practice squad somewhere else. Aaron's going to be done. Devontae's going to be done in a few years. When that all is said and done, what happens? You have no picks, have no salary cap because you're probably still paying for crap. What do? You just go back to being a bottom feeder franchise? No one wants to do that. So I don't know why they're making these decisions, because I think you got it pretty much on the head. He's not making football decisions as the GM. I think he's just making decisions that are going to bring the most attention to the Jets, and it's just going to pack the stands, which is cool and all. But at the end of the year, when you're losing games and your quarterback's not like the reason that people are coming to games anymore, what do you have?
Yeah, the clown show. You got the circus. And I think another important point real quick or another important side thing that I saw is Sauce Gardner deleted all his social medias. So he's
So
no
did
longer.
Romeo Dobbs.
And he was the loudmouth that came out after they beat the Packers and with Rodgers and tried to get him recruited over and that sort of thing. So I think that's a really telling story too. He is a big kind of head. I think he's from UCF, right? Central Florida. Sauce, I believe. I can't remember.
Yeah.
But anyways, he was a big I think arbitrator in beginning.
Cincinnati Bearcats. Sorry.
Yeah, Cincinnati Bearcat, and beginning everything for the Rodgers thing, and now I think he's seen it fall apart. The guy I wanted on the trade, and who hasn't, he doesn't speak much, but it was Quinnen Williams up the middle. I really like him. He's big boy, he's big baby or whatever they call him. He's real nice. Seems like a real good guy. But yeah, I think the Jets are a dumpster fire. I think they got a lot to figure out, and if they get Devontae, oh my gosh, it's just going to be a mess. Especially with Garrett Wilson, a really young talent that isn't really necessarily being used in the best way. And then you got Breece Hall behind him. So you got a lot of talent all over the field.
Braylon Allen behind him.
Yep.
You have a great offense, and I don't know why they can't just get it to click. You have a great wide receiver. You have a great secondary wide receiver and a comfortable wide receiver in Alan Lazard. You have those two running backs.
They don't have
that
a
are
line.
Just going ballistic. Yeah, but it's Rodgers. He should be able to get the ball out faster.
He's like 40 years old, yeah.
He should be like, I know that this blitz, or I know that these guys are coming and I don't have time. Hot route Allen on a quick or something. Put Garrett on something. But no, it just seems like he just isn't there. And again, this is coming from a person who's watched Aaron perform in Lambeau and just annihilate defenses and check down and scramble and do all this amazing GOAT stuff. Then to see him go to the Jets, and it's just like, it seems like he's almost a shadow of himself, which is, I hate to say it because I love the guy and I love what he did for this organization. I just wish he was just playing better, and I would still love to watch the Jets if Devontae went over there because I think that'd be a great spectacle. I just don't think it's going to be as cool as everyone thinks. I think it's going to be a dumpster fire. I think one Jets drive is going to be one cumulus of a lot of bad energy, and at some point it's going to blow up in someone's face. And I imagine that it's probably going to end up being Rodgers blowing up. But we'll see what happens. Only time will tell. Who knows? Maybe they go out there, they get Devontae, and they go win a Super Bowl. I mean, who knows? But it seems like statistics are against them.
Yeah, and I think on one Jets drive might turn their name into on Google Maps waste management organization, just because it is a real mess. But we'll wrap things up with that. Having some good discussion here once again with Karter Decker. I'm Jonny Samp, and you were listening to the Beer, Meat, and Cheese podcast. Yes, we did have a little technical difficulties. We picked it back up right where we left off, hopefully, and everything looks good. So we do appreciate all your guys' viewing, all your guys' interactions with us. Don't forget to do that as well on Twitter, Real Jonny Samp, and I believe it's at Karter Deck 14 or at Karter 14 Deck. There it is. I see it scrolling across the screen. And you're more than welcome to interact with us. We love hearing from you guys. And we're also on Spotify, so if you are in the car ride, make sure you do pop us in and give us a listen and enjoy it. But we'll wish you a happy NFL week here as we wrap things up. And best of luck to your favorite team. Go Pack Go, right, Karter? And
Go Pack Go. Let's
F the Bears, baby. F the Bears. And we'll see you next time right here on the Beer, Meat, and Cheese Podcast.